welcome to another episode of the Public Opinion Show with your host, Pam. Normally, Vanetta is with me as my co-host, but she is off celebrating her husband's birthday. So I am going to have a very special guest host with me this week. She has been on the show before, and this week we are going to be talking about mental health awareness, and this is May, and it is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I am going to have joining me as my special guest host, Judy Jackson-Winston. And Judy is the former client rights officer of the Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Services Board, also known as the ADAMHS Board of Cuyahoga County, where she served for 19 years prior to being appointed as a domestic relations magistrate for the Honorable Tanya Jones. Judy is the author of the fictional novels, The Anniversary and the Commemoration, and the non-fictional, The Anniversary Guide to Behavioral Health and Workbook. So please join me in welcoming Judy Jackson-Winston. Hey, Judy.
Hey, how are you?
I am wonderful. And how are you?
I am excellent. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, and thank you again for agreeing to be my co-host. You're a good friend, but I also can always depend on you in a pinch. So I appreciate that.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, an honor. Well, you know what? The reason I asked you to be my co-host this week is because of the subject matter of the show. And we are recognizing that this is May and it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so the question that I have this week really speaks to mental health. And I'm not going to say the question yet until I introduce our guest, but it just seems like, you know, you cannot turn on the news or read an article that doesn't have something to do with either somebody committing suicide or suffering some type of mental health crisis. And with what just happened over the weekend in Buffalo, even though I truly believe that was a hate crime, it makes me wonder though still about, you know, the psyche and you know, and everybody's general overall mental health.
Right. He had homicidal tendencies, it appears.
You know, right. Homicidal tendencies. And so that's what I want to talk about this week. I want to get into the meat of some of the issues that surround mental health, because everybody, as far as I'm concerned, has to take care of their mental health. Everybody, just like you have a physical body, you have, you know, emotional health that needs to be addressed. So,
and if you don't take care of your emotional health, then your physical body will be damaged. That's what we see as well.
Right. That's right. And so this week we are going to have a guest that will join us. She is a psychologist. Her name is Dr. Natalie Whitlow. And Natalie Whitlow is a licensed psychologist and the founder and lead psychologist of Our Village, a service organization. Her mission is to help people understand the function that mental health plays in every aspect of their lives and to help them develop strategies to attain optimal mental health. So I am excited to have her join us, and I'm excited about the conversation that we're going to have surrounding mental health. So everyone, please welcome Dr. Natalie Whitlow. So welcome, Dr. Whitlow, and thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest on the show this week. I really appreciate it.
You are very welcome. I thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started, and we're going to look at the public opinion question of the week. Can suicide really be prevented? And if so, how? All right. Wow. So Natalie, I am going to give you the opportunity to answer that question. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes so you can go ahead and answer the question. Go ahead.
Okay. Can suicide be prevented? And if so, how? Yes, suicide can be prevented. And when I say that, I really want to make sure that, especially for people who have been impacted by suicide, that they don't get offended and they don't take that wrong, because I don't want anyone to feel like if you yourself ever attempted suicide, or if someone that you love has attempted or committed, that there was anything that you could have done to stop it. But one of the things that we want to make sure to do is to value mental health as a health condition. And just like with any other health condition, can you prevent heart disease? Can you prevent high blood pressure? You absolutely can prevent suicide. There are determinants that we can look at to be able to then put safeguards in place to be able to help people alleviate whatever stressors they are dealing with, whatever factors are going on that cause them to get to that point, to be able to develop the kinds of coping strategies and resiliency skills that are needed to manage crises. So in short, absolutely, suicide can be prevented. And of course, we understand that there are some cases where, no, there is nothing that could have been done because of the circumstances, but by and large, yes, it can be prevented.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Now, Judy, I'm going to also give you the opportunity to answer that, and go ahead.
I'm going to agree with Dr. Whitlow that we can do a lot of things to try to assist people if they are having a crisis. And if you do believe somebody around you is suicidal, there are things that you can do, such as remove all firearms and weapons, things that you can harm yourself with, because sometimes people are they're psychotic, they're not having a good day, and they might do something that the next day would be regretful of. I have personally lost 2 people close to me due to suicide. And it is very difficult as a survivor, the people who love that person who did that, that you can feel like maybe you could have did more. But what Dr. Whitlow said is so important. What we want to do is to build people up. If we see that they're having a problem, we might have to take extreme steps. So if we feel that you're suicidal, we might have to involuntarily commit you. We have to take those steps to get that person the assistance and the support that they need. But there may be a few people who do, because they're so intent on their plan, they may actually be able to carry out that. But for the most part, if we continue to give those kind of supports to the individual that is inflicted with the situation, we possibly can help change the trajectory of everything. So I hope I answered it.
Yes. Thank you all both for saying that, because, and I'm going to tell you the reason why I had that question is because it seems like every time this year we're bombarded with, things on the news that say, if you know somebody who might be thinking of suicide, and then they put these numbers up, or you can call this suicide hotline. But I say to myself, sometimes, does that really work? And by the time you see that, is somebody who's really suffering a crisis going to see that and just think to themselves, okay, well, let me just call this number. They make it almost seem like an easy thing. And so, like you said, Dr. Whitlow and Judy, you need to recognize the signs maybe and know whether somebody is suffering. So, Dr. Whitlow, what exactly are maybe some signs that people can look out for? Because I hear a lot of times people say, I had no idea, I didn't know. I knew they were sad, or something like that.
Well, then you knew. I was just getting ready to say, I call your bluff when you say I had no idea. And again, going back to the value of mental health, I think that because we can't hold on to our emotions and, they're not a tangible item, we lose what I like to call our common sense factor, because there are things that you see when someone gets to the point where they are actually making an attempt. This is oftentimes years in the making, because there are processes to get into that point, right? So first, people just start thinking about, what if I wasn't here? If I wasn't here, then I wouldn't be a burden to people. Or if I wasn't here, then this pain would all go away. Then they start thinking about, if I were to die, maybe things would be easier. So it go from, if I wasn't here, to maybe if I were to die, things would be easier. Sometimes, especially in children, you hear children say, I wish you would just kill me. If I'm so horrible, then just kill me. So then they go to that point. And then people go to, well, maybe I would just kill myself. Maybe I should just take myself out of here and I shouldn't be here. And then they go and start thinking, oh, if I take these pills, maybe this could happen. So as you see, there's this long psychological process that occurs that people are going through, that unfortunately, because we as a country are still so uncomfortable with mental health, so uncomfortable with our emotions, when we detect that somebody is feeling uncomfortable, oh, you're gonna be fine, and we minimize it. You know, we want to put it on the back burner. We don't want to give space to be able to discuss it, because if they have let that little bit leak, guess what that means? They want somebody to know. And then, unfortunately, and again, this is not to make anybody feel guilty or place blame, but unfortunately, when and it's well-meaning, when we kind of minimize or we say something very cheery to pick them up, that feels like a rejection. I tried to get this to you. And again, this is one more space where I'm not wanted. This is one more space where you don't want to hear me.
And I think people, because they don't know what to say, they think that that's a people who it's an instinct to want to bring somebody up who's down.
Absolutely.
And Judy, I had Dr. Whitlow, just to let you know, I was talking to Judy, and just like what you said, sometimes little children can say it. I was telling Judy, I really, really believe that people should have mental health checkups from the beginning, like when you're a child, just like you have physical exams. I think it should be a requirement that you have some type of psychological evaluation. And so, Judy, what do you think about that?
I think that having an evaluation is a very good thing. We should all be doing our checkup, you know, and checking in with ourselves and others. And I also wanted to just piggyback on some things that Dr. Whitlow said that I want people to be cautious about. You know, when people sometimes are in this space where they're suicidal, they're also religiously preoccupied. There are people who believe, they want to know, if I do this, am I going to go to heaven? And I remember doing a presentation with the ADAMHS board to the clergy to help raise awareness with the clergy, because oftentimes when people are in that space, they are seeking permission from their religious leaders. And also people around them who also may be religious. They'll ask about scriptures, they'll ask different questions. Those sometimes can be signs. So instead of us being uncomfortable, when people are coming to us and they appear to be in pain, we need to help them and let them know that you might be feeling this pain right now, but there's places that can help you, people that can help you, people who will hear you, because I think that's the issue. And we also got to remind people, this life is not a video game. You know, like when you play a video game, you know, when you get killed playing Mortal Kombat, you push the button, you come back to life. You don't know what's going to happen. So, and it's also, you know, just trying to help them. They often think they're doing you a favor.
Yes.
Yeah, and like you said, people will be like, well, you know what, I've never been good at anything. They start feeling like they're failures. But these are things that people have learned afterwards. And so that's all I'm saying is, even if somebody that you know says these things, what is the first thing that a person should do if they have an idea that somebody might be feeling that way, though? I mean,
listen, you know, and promote a conversation. So I want to debunk that myth that if I talk about suicide and I bring it up, then that's going to give them the idea. You cannot give anybody the idea of committing suicide. And so one, as humans, you know, we have instincts. And so somebody's talking to you and you start feeling uncomfortable and your feels start to get stimulated to be able to ask, you thinking about hurting yourself? Are you okay? Putting that out there. But people get afraid to do that again because they think I'm going to give them some kind of idea, you know, but I think that's the first thing to do is to listen to them and to give them voice. Another thing is when they're in that space, one, They're either in an irrational place where whatever it is that they're dealing with feels insurmountable to them and they can't see their way past it. And so helping to give them different vision is really important. Another reason that people get to the point of suicide is as a form of coping. I don't know what else to do. So if I wasn't here, and so helping to brainstorm with them solutions and things that can be done for the issues that they are facing. Now, there's the other aspect of the psychological pain that people feel, just that deep, non-physical, emotional pain that they feel like they cannot escape. And I will tell you this, that kind of pain, you can develop endurance against, right? And so then supporting them and helping them to understand that there is place that they can go to get treated. Just like if you break your ankle and now you have a lifelong ankle injury, you go to pain management and you learn strategies to tolerate that pain. The same thing can happen with psychological and emotional pain, where you learn resiliency, you learn how to endure and withstand that pain. Because one of the biggest lies that we tell is the fact that, you know, all life is gonna be happy, just get back to being happy. No, sometimes some things aren't happy. Anyone who has lost parents or who has lost a child will tell you that is a pain that doesn't go away, but you learn how to manage that pain. And so those are some of the things that you can do to be able, if somebody brings that to you. The other thing I think is also to be their hope, because when they can't see something, you kind of see it for them. Just like your friend who's writing a book and they start off and they say, I'm never gonna finish this book. And you say, girl, I read that first chapter. That first chapter is good. Let me see the second one. And you're their hope that no, you're creating something. Do that same thing for someone who is suicidal. Help them be their hope to see the end when they can't see it.
Right. And, you know, I think a lot of that speaks to that stigma too, because I think if we start, and that's why I keep going back to, if we start when kids are young, letting them know mental health is important. Mental health is just as important to your physical health. Then you won't feel this stigma of maybe if you're feeling some kind of way, but you don't want to say anything because people will think you're crazy, or, you know, we don't go, especially as Black people, we don't really go that much to therapists. You know, or we tell everybody, look, when I was young, we did this and you just buck up. You know, those are the type of things.
You go to church.
Yeah,
that's what they always tell you, that you get on your knees.
Get on your knees.
And you pray. And God will help you. And what do you mean? You survived slavery.
You know, but you don't tell somebody that when they break their leg, just get on your knees and pray that it'll be healed. You pray, I believe in incorporating prayer on the way to the hospital when I get my legs set. You know, so I think we really have to do a better job as
we got to remember.
Communities.
We have to remember, Pam, it's that at the end of the day, African Americans, we wear so many labels. And so sometimes people don't want to have yet another label. And we have to be careful in the way that we speak to one another. If someone has bipolar disorder, they're not bipolar.
Right.
They have bipolar disorder.
Exactly.
We call people whatever we think their situation is. You're borderline.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, and who wants to have another label?
Yes.
Well, you already care. It's already so hard to carry so many labels. So another thing that we can do is to try to tailor our speech in a way that we're not being stigmatizing and how we talk to people. That's really important as well.
Yes. And you know, such a key to doing that. And this kind of goes back, Pam, to what you were talking about children too. I think that children being encouraged to express themselves taps into the parents' stuff. Because when that child is saying, you know, I'm dissatisfied with this, mommy got to then look and say, what kind of dissatisfying circumstances have I created? Did he see that man sneaking in the house the other night? Right? I'm not making sure that he has structure. And so mom feels insecure with her own emotional stuff, with the child expressing emotional stuff, which is why we squash them. It's really about our own stuff. And same thing then, Judy, going back to your point about we got to watch our language. Oh, absolutely. But when people get to talking about their emotions and the despair that they feel and the way that it taps into our own stuff, what we want to do is shut it down. Because I just finished closing that door last week. Nobody knows that I was battling that demon just last week. But I just got to a place where I'm kind of feeling okay. I don't want to open the door to hearing about your pain, because if I go back in that door, I might not be able to save myself again. So what you talking about that for? You sound crazy. You better get yourself together.
Yeah.
Or you feel guilty. You have people who've dealt with trauma. You get older, you have a child, some things happen. You look back and maybe you could have did 1, 2, and 3. You rather not deal with that because you did your best.
Yes.
So you keep it moving, and you don't want to hear why you got a problem, because you know you had food and you had clothes, and you had shelter. So what do you mean? You know, you got trauma, you got pain that helped to create these issues you're having. And it's all about us being honest with each other. Nobody is perfect. We're not asking people to be Jesus. You know, we're asking them to just, you know, be open with one another, help each other, stop being so judgmental.
Right. And actually listen to people when they say things. And that's what I think we have to do, is listen. When someone says they're in pain or this, you can't discount people's feelings. Even though if you might be a strong person and the other person isn't, you can't just discount their feelings just because you wouldn't feel that way.
Right.
In that circumstance.
Right.
Because you don't know. Because oftentimes you're not living the life that you're watching somebody else live. You're not in their shoes.
Right.
You don't know what you would do until you were in that situation. You think you do.
Right.
Until it happens to you.
Yeah. Because, you know, and not just with the suicide, but also like even homicide, suicidal type of ideations or whatever, perhaps can be picked up on if people actually look for things, look for cues. If in the school and teachers are actually taught to identify a lot of, you know, perhaps mental health issues in students. And I think they probably are to a certain degree, but I just think it should just be a whole checking in and process, because we're just living in a society now where it's so many things that are causing people to go off the deep end, it appears. And with this whole pandemic coming out of that, you know, people have experienced a lot more depression, isolation, and, you know, just all types of feelings that might lead, you know, to suicide. But
and we're still not out of this this pandemic. We're still uncertain. Some of us have chosen to continue to stay isolated for fear of our health. So, you know, I think we just have to continue to be careful. And even looking at what just happened in New York with the shooter, the school system did see something wrong. They did alert the police. He was put in the hospital. But I do want to make this very clear, you know, from a legal perspective, can't help it. Mental health professionals, we're going to do our very best to try to help people. But we're not always, you know, going to be able to predict who's going to do this and who's not. You know, and that's something that no one has a crystal ball. Because, you know, if I did, Pam, you know, I had those lottery numbers, don't you, girl? I share my money with my girls on the screen.
Oh, yes. Yes. Now, Dr. Whitlow, is there anything you want to say in by way of closing in regard to this subject?
Yeah, you know, I just think that we as Black people, one, need to recognize that suicide is something that we do. You know, that this is not something that is a weak white person's disease, which unfortunately has become some of the stigma, but that this is something that we do. And that secondly, you gotta become comfortable yourself with your own emotions and your own stuff in order to be supportive to someone else, in order to listen to and support someone else. I also want to just say to people too, as you are trying to support someone that you feel is at risk of suicide, that it is completely acceptable for you to go with them. So for you to be with them, as they call a suicide hotline, for you to go with them to a counselor and therapist, for you to be their support in that way. I can't tell you how many times I'm talking to someone and they're in a really bad space. And I say, well, do you have a support system? And they say, yes. And then I'll say, well, can you call them? And their support system will say, well, I didn't know it was okay for me to be present and a part of that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because that takes away so much of the fear. It takes away so much of the burden. When somebody is finally at the point where they are wanting to commit, imagine how depleted they must be. And so the effort it must take to even call somebody, to even go into their office. And so if you're there to be a boost of energy for them, that is definitely acceptable and something that, you can do.
Right. Thank you so much. I certainly appreciate your coming on the show and the things that you have said. And I appreciate you as well, Judy. And thanks again. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Oh, that was great. I really enjoyed the things that she said. I think she was, both you and her were very insightful. And I think that the audience will be able to take away a lot of good things. I know I learned a lot because I really like what she said about listening to people and not talking at people. Absolutely. And because if somebody is saying that they're hurting or whatever, we cannot discount that and we have to listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And she gave us some really good strategies on how to listen without being judgmental, without trying to impose our will on people. And, I know I'm a social worker, so I always want to fix people or help people. Like if somebody brings a problem to me, I always want to fix it.
Right.
And sometimes the way that you help fix things is to listen.
Yes. So much can be said about just listening to people. And so I do appreciate you coming on. And I know you wanted to give more information about suicide.
I did. I wanted to give your viewers the number to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And that number is 1-800-273-8255. And if you do have someone in your life that you feel might be showing tendencies of being suicidal, then you might want to reach out to them because they have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week assistance. And they will connect you to someone in the area that you're in.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you all so much again for watching the Public Opinion Show. So I'll see you next time for another edition of Public Opinion. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.